In the unforgiving expanse of the American West, a man can find himself lost in the shadows of his own sorrow. And for Silas McGraw, that shadow loomed large over a grave marked by a weathered wooden cross. The dirt beneath his boots felt like the remnants of a life he could no longer grasp, a life stolen too soon by the relentless grip of fate. Silas, once a proud rancher, known for his unyielding spirit, now spent his days in solitude, haunted by the laughter of a daughter who'd been taken from him in a tragic twist of destiny. The land around him was rugged and harsh, much like his heart. The sun beat down upon the dry soil, casting long shadows that whispered of secrets lost to time. Silas's ranch stood alone, a worn-out testament to better days, surrounded by rolling hills and distant mountains. The wind howled through the canyons, carrying with it the dust of the past and the echoes of dreams unfulfilled. On this particular afternoon, as Silas knelt before the grave, a sense of peace eluded him. Each day was a struggle, a battle against the weight of his grief that seemed to grow heavier with every passing moment. But as he wiped the sweat from his brow and traced the outline of his daughter's name etched in the wood, a rustling sound broke the stillness of the air. The sun dipped lower, casting an orange glow over the horizon, when three figures appeared on the distant rise, silhouetted against the fading light. At first, Silas squinted, unsure if he was imagining things or if the land had conjured phantoms to torment him further. But as they drew closer, the reality set in. They were Native Americans, worn and weary, their faces etched with fear and desperation. Two men and a woman stumbled towards him, their eyes wide, glistening with a mix of hope and trepidation. Silas could see the exhaustion etched into their features, the way they moved as if the very ground beneath them was treacherous. He instinctively reached for the rifle hanging on the wall of his cabin, but he hesitated, caught between instinct and something deeper, a flicker of empathy igniting in the heart he thought had long turned to stone. "What do you want?" he called out, his voice rough as gravel, echoing the unease that had taken root in his chest. The men exchanged glances, their bodies trembling. It was the woman who stepped forward, her dark hair whipping in the wind, revealing a face that was both beautiful and haunted. "Please," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "We are being hunted. We need shelter." The weight of her words settled heavily upon Silas. In that moment, he faced a choice that could shatter the fragile peace he had constructed around himself. The prejudices that ran deep in the veins of the West screamed at him to turn them away, to protect what little he had left. But as he locked eyes with the woman, he felt the stirrings of an old resolve, one that urged him to defy the darkness that had come to claim him. "What's your name?" Silas asked, trying to drown out the echo of judgment ringing in his ears. "Luna," she replied, her voice stronger now, yet tinged with fear. "We were attacked by soldiers. They are searching for us." Silas's heart raced. The soldiers were often a law unto themselves, driven by a duty twisted with greed and a hunger for control. Helping these three could spell trouble, possibly even death, but the thought of turning them away felt like a betrayal of something he had almost forgotten: humanity. "Why should I trust you?" he challenged, the harshness of his words clashing against the trembling hope in her eyes. "Because," she said, stepping closer, "if you don't, they will come for you next." A chill crept down Silas's spine. He had spent years building walls, convinced that isolation was his only salvation. Yet here was a chance to break through them. The stakes were too high to ignore. He weighed the risks, the potential consequences. The ranch had seen enough bloodshed, and the thought of inviting more trouble into his life stirred a fear he thought had long since withered away. Yet, as he glanced back at the grave, he saw not just a marker of loss, but a reminder of love, a love that deserved to be honored by compassion. With a sigh that felt like it came from the depths of his very soul, Silas made his decision. "All right," he said, his voice steadier now. "You can stay, but you must be quiet, and you mustn't draw attention to yourselves." Relief washed over Luna's face, and her companions visibly relaxed, though the tension still lingered in the air. Silas gestured for them to follow him towards the cabin, each step forward feeling like a gamble against fate itself. But as they entered the small, dimly lit space, Silas couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger storm. Secrets lay buried in the land, And the arrival of these strangers would unearth more than just the past. The West was a place where choices defined men, and as Silas closed the door behind them, he felt the weight of history pressing down upon him, whispering the truth he had always known. In this world, nothing comes without a price. Was he ready to pay it? Silas settled into a chair by the hearth, his eyes flickering between the fire and the three figures before him. He felt the heavy silence wrap around them like a shroud, thick with uncertainty. Luna, the girl with eyes that mirrored the stormy skies above, sat cross-legged on the floor. Her companions, a weathered man named Taz and a young boy who barely appeared to be more than 12, stood protectively beside her. "Why are you running?" Silas finally broke the silence, his voice a low rumble, thick with curiosity and caution. Luna hesitated, her gaze flickering to Taz, who nodded slightly, urging her to speak. "We came from the valley," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The soldiers, they're taking our land, burning our homes." Silas clenched his jaw, the memories of his own past igniting a fire in his chest. He had seen too many good folks suffer at the hands of those in power. "What do you mean, taking? Are they hunting you?" Luna shook her head, determination settling into her features. "They want to make an example of us. They've been rounding up our people, claiming we're troublemakers. But we only want to live in peace." Taz stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "They think if they scare us enough, we'll leave. But we won't. We'll fight." Silas could feel the weight of their defiance, the fierce will to stand firm against the tide of oppression. It stirred something deep within him, a longing for a purpose beyond his grief. "You understand the risk you're taking by coming here?" Luna's eyes shone with an intensity that nearly caught him off guard. "We had nowhere else to go. You can help us, can't you? We just need a chance." Silas glanced towards the door, half expecting it to burst open at any moment. The corrupt lawman, Sheriff McGraw, ready to pull them back into the shadows from which they had just escaped. The thought of standing against such a man made his heart race, yet he felt an unexpected bond growing between them. The same desire that drove him to save a life once before now beckoned him toward another chance at redemption. As the fire crackled, he could not ignore the gnawing sensation that this act of kindness could lead to dire consequences. But in the depths of his soul, the memories of his daughter's laughter echoed, reminding him of the innocence worth protecting. "Very well," Silas said, his voice firm yet cautious. "You can stay for now, but we need a plan. I won't put you in danger, and I won't let those men take you without a fight." A flicker of hope brightened Luna's features, and Taz's stance relaxed slightly. But Silas sensed the danger was not just from the outside world. The shadows of his past loomed large, whispering doubts into his heart. In the days that followed, Silas, Luna, Taz, and the young boy formed an uneasy alliance. They worked together to fortify the cabin, gathering supplies and mapping out routes for escape if the need arose. With each passing day, they shared stories by the fire, and Silas found himself drawn to their resilience, their spirits unbroken by the cruelty of the world around them. But as tensions rose, so did the spectre of Sheriff McGraw. The man was no fool. He sensed unrest brewing in the valley. Rumors whispered through the town of the lone rancher, who had taken in 3 Native Americans, and with each passing hour, the noose tightened around Silas's neck. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Silas gathered the group around the fire. "We need to prepare for what's coming. I've heard talk of a posse forming. McGraw won't let this stand." Luna's eyes narrowed, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll fight. We can't let him destroy our spirit." Silas paused, weighing his words carefully. "Fighting might only bring more trouble. We need to outsmart him, use his own game against him." As they plotted their next move, the tension in the air thickened, simmering with unspoken fears and hopes. And just when Silas thought he had grasped the full extent of the threat, a chilling realization struck him. The sheriff was not just hunting them. He was looking for something far more sinister, a hidden treasure buried deep within the land that belonged to both the native people and the rancher. With the stakes higher than ever, Silas felt the weight of the past pressing down upon him, the choices he had made, and the ghosts that refused to let him be. In the unyielding expanse of the West, he was not just fighting for others, but for his very soul, as the line between right and wrong began to blur against the backdrop of a world steeped in injustice. As the fire crackled and the shadows danced, the stillness of the night was shattered by the thunder of hoofbeats approaching. Silas's heart raced, his instincts honed by years of solitude and survival. He had known this moment would come, and yet he felt the chill of uncertainty creep up his spine. The shadows of the night solidified into the figure of Sheriff McGraw, flanked by a group of men, their faces hardened by a life of lawlessness, cloaked in the guise of authority. Silas stood, fists clenched, preparing for the confrontation that had been brewing like a storm on the horizon. "Well, look what we got here," McGraw called out, his voice dripping with disdain as he surveyed the gathered group. "A band of thieves hiding behind the flicker of a fire, thinking they can escape the law." Silas stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "You're not here for justice, McGraw, you're here for something else." The sheriff smirked, a glint of malice in his eye. "Smart as a whip, ain't you? But you're in over your head, Silas. Hand over the native folk, and I might just let you walk away from this." A tense silence enveloped the group, the weight of their lives hanging in the balance. Luna moved closer to Silas, her eyes aflame with defiance. "We'll never go with you. We have every right to stand our ground." McGraw laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. "Rights. In this world, rights are just words spoken by the weak. You think you can stand against me? I hold the power here." But it was then, amidst the escalating tension, that the twist of fate revealed itself. From the shadows of the trees emerged a figure cloaked in a tattered blanket, his face hidden. The group shifted uneasily, and Silas's heart skipped a beat as the figure stepped into the firelight, revealing the mark of a chief, a symbol of his true identity that had long been hidden from the world. "Chief Chemo," Silas breathed, the weight of recognition crashing over him. "You've returned." McGraw's confidence faltered, his smirk fading as he realized the implications of this revelation. "You're not who I thought you were," he stammered, his facade cracking. Chemo's voice, strong yet filled with sorrow, echoed in the night. "You exploit the fear of my people, McGraw. You seek to turn us against each other, but truth will always rise." The sheriff's eyes darted between Silas and Chemo, panic evident in his features. "This ain't over. You think you can spin this tale and come out clean. You're nothing but outlaws in my eyes." But Silas held firm, the moral weight of the moment pressing down upon him. "You've been deceiving the town, McGraw. It's time they know the truth behind your greed." The men around the sheriff hesitated, glancing at one another as doubt seeped into their ranks. "You're a liar!" one of them shouted. But the uncertainty was palpable, and the sheriff's grip on his power began to slip. Chemo raised a hand, commanding silence. "Your fear has blinded you. Together we can reclaim what is ours, but divided, we are easy prey for men like him." Silas felt the shifting tide, the weight of history, and the promise of a better future coalescing in the air. In that moment, the lines of right and wrong shifted, revealing a path toward justice forged through alliance rather than violence. As McGraw's bravado crumbled, Silas knew the stakes had changed irrevocably. The confrontation was not just about survival, it was about exposing the truth and uniting against a common enemy. The battle for their souls had just begun, and they would fight not just with weapons, but with the undeniable strength of their shared resolve. As the tension hung thick in the air, Silas felt a flicker of hope. He knew that words could be more potent than bullets, and the people around him were beginning to listen. McGraw, sensing the shifting mood, clenched his jaw, his eyes narrowing with anger. "You think you can sway them with your pretty speeches? They're loyal to me, not some washed-up cowboy with a sad story," he spat, but the bite in his voice lacked conviction. Chemo stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Loyalty is earned, McGraw, not bought. Your time is up," the crowd murmured, the weight of Chemo's words stirring something deep within them. Silas seized the moment, his voice steady and resolute. "We all carry scars from this land's history. It's time we heal them together. No more lies, no more division." The townsfolk began to nod, their collective memory of years of exploitation and fear merging with a newfound sense of courage. McGraw's henchmen exchanged glances, their resolve wavering as they remembered the faces of the families who had suffered under McGraw's reign. "You're all fools!" McGraw shouted, desperation creeping into his tone. "You'll regret this day when the law comes crashing down on you." Silas took a step closer, a calm fire burning in his chest. "The law, or your twisted version of it? You've used that badge to shield your crimes long enough. The truth will out, McGraw." With that, he turned to the Native Americans at his side, their expressions a mix of determination and apprehension. "You have allies now. We'll stand together no matter the cost." Chemo nodded, his fierce gaze promising solidarity. As the crowd continued to gather, bolstered by Silas's words, McGraw's facade began to crack. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, and he turned to his men, attempting to rally them back to his side. "What's it going to be, boys? Are we going to let these savages take our town?" But the men he had counted on were no longer sure. The weight of their own actions pressed heavily upon them. One by one they stepped back, creating a physical divide between themselves and the sheriff, a powerful symbol of changing allegiances. Silas saw the moment of truth reflected in their eyes. "This is your chance to stand for what's right," he encouraged, "to be part of a new story where we all have a place." Chemo spoke again, his voice clear and unwavering. "Join us, and together we can confront the real enemy. McGraw's greed is what threatens us all, not each other." As McGraw fumed, Silas felt the ground shifting beneath them. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. The weight of their shared histories hung heavily, demanding accountability and justice. Then, a sudden crash echoed from the saloon as a figure stumbled out, breathless and wide-eyed. It was Clara, the daughter Silas had mourned for too long, her face pale but determined. "Dad," she called, voice cracking, "you have to listen. I saw something I shouldn't have." All eyes turned to her, the gravity of her words causing an uneasy hush to fall over the gathering. Silas rushed to her side, the memories of loss colliding with a desperate need to understand. "What did you see, Clara?" he asked, his heart pounding. "The men, McGraw's men, they're planning something that will put everyone in danger. They've been meeting at the old mine." A collective gasp filled the air as the implications sank in. The town's fate rested not just on the past, but on the actions they would take in the present. Silas looked to Chemo, his heart racing with the realization that the confrontation was now more than a battle against McGraw. It was a race against time to reveal the truth and dismantle a conspiracy that threatened them all. "Then we go to the mine," Silas declared, a fire igniting within him. "We confront this head-on. It's time to end McGraw's grip on this town once and for all." The crowd surged with newfound determination, and as they prepared to move, Silas felt the weight of his daughter's presence beside him, a reminder that hope could rise from the ashes of despair. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, united by a bond that defied the darkness surrounding them. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain as Silas and the assembled group trudged toward the old mine. Each step echoed with the weight of their purpose, a blend of fear and resolve threading through the air like the distant sound of thunder. They could hear the whispers of the past, the echoes of promises broken, and the lingering scent of betrayal. As they approached the mine's entrance, Silas felt a chill creep down his spine. He knew McGraw's men wouldn't take kindly to intruders, especially those seeking to expose their secrets. Yet there was no turning back now. Clara's words hung heavy in his heart, propelling him forward. The townsfolk trailed behind, their faces etched with apprehension, but ignited by the spark of defiance. The mouth of the mine loomed before them, an ominous gaping maw, dark and foreboding. Silas gathered the group, his voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty within. "We go in together. Stay close. Watch each other's backs. This isn't just about us. It's for everyone who's been silenced." With a nod, Chemo took the lead, his presence a comforting anchor in the growing storm. They stepped into the darkness, the air thick with dust and the ghosts of those who had come before. As they ventured deeper, the walls of the mine whispered secrets of greed and despair, tainted by the ambitions of men like McGraw. As they reached a cavern lit by flickering lanterns, the sight before them sent a surge of rage coursing through Silas's veins. McGraw and his men stood huddled around a makeshift table, maps and documents strewn about, their voices low but intent. Silas recognized the names, the townsfolk whose lives were at stake, the properties they sought to claim under the guise of progress. He motioned for silence, and the group pressed against the rough-hewn walls, straining to hear the conversation unfolding. McGraw's voice cut through the darkness, thick with malice. Once we push them out, the land is ours. They'll never see it coming. We'll frame the Native Americans for the trouble. No one will question a thing. Silas's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Chemo. The truth had never been clearer. McGraw wasn't just a corrupt businessman, he was a puppet master, orchestrating fear and hatred to serve his greed. "Now's our chance," Silas whispered, determination igniting in his chest. "We expose him right here, right now." With a shared nod of resolve, they surged forward, breaking the silence with a shattering declaration. "McGraw!" The men turned, surprise washing over their faces, swiftly replaced by hostility. "What in tarnation are you doing here?" McGraw spat, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "We're here to end your tyranny," Silas declared, his voice steady. "We know what you're planning. The townsfolk won't be your pawns any longer." The tension in the cavern thickened, a palpable force as the men shifted, hands hovering over guns. But Silas continued, his voice rising above the chaos. "You've instilled fear in this town for too long. You're the true enemy here, hiding behind lies and deceit." The room erupted into chaos, and in that moment of distraction, Clara's vision surged back into Silas's mind. "They're not alone," she had said, and he understood now. The strength of community was their greatest weapon. Chemo stepped forward, the weight of his heritage burning bright in his chest. "You've used our people's suffering for your gain, but that stops today. We stand together, united against your corruption." McGraw's expression darkened, realizing the tide was shifting. "You think you can take me down? You're nothing but a bunch of fools." But Silas pressed on, unyielding in his conviction. "We know the truth. Your time is up, McGraw. You'll face justice for what you've done." The confrontation escalated, but amidst the threats and shouts, Silas sensed the crumbling of McGraw's facade. He could feel the shifting loyalty among the men, uncertainty creeping into their hearts. The truth had a way of unraveling lies, and Silas was determined to expose the corruption that festered in their midst. As they stood there, facing the embodiment of their struggle, Silas felt the spirit of his daughter beside him, a guiding light in the darkness. He knew they were on the brink of a new dawn, where hope and justice could rise from the ashes of oppression, ready to reclaim their future together. As the weight of the moment pressed upon them, Silas stepped closer, his voice steady and resolute. "We have evidence of your dealings, McGraw. The bribes, the betrayals, the orchestrated violence against innocent lives. The truth will be laid bare for all to see." Chemo nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. "You cannot silence us anymore. Our stories will echo in the hearts of our people. They will rise alongside us. Together we will dismantle your empire of deceit." McGraw's bravado faltered, fear creeping into his eyes. "You think you can sway them? You're nothing but whispers in the wind." But whispers carried weight, and the men that had once blindly followed McGraw began to murmur amongst themselves. They exchanged glances, doubt gnawing at their loyalty. The air thickened with the realization that truth often has the power to sever the bonds forged in corruption. Silas took a breath, feeling the presence of the community he had long denied himself. Justice is not just for the wronged, it's for the hearts that still beat with the courage to stand against tyranny. "McGraw, your reign of fear is over." With that proclamation, a ripple of resolve surged through the gathered crowd. One by one, former followers of McGraw stepped away from his side, drawn to the promise of a united front. The strength of their shared history ignited a fire that would not be extinguished. McGraw, realizing his grip was slipping, tried to rally his remaining loyalists, but the tide had turned. The weight of their collective truth shattered his power, as one by one they abandoned him, standing shoulder to shoulder with Silas and Chemo. In that pivotal moment, the sheriff arrived, drawn by the commotion. He had been a silent observer, his own heart battling the prejudice that had shaped his past. Yet, witnessing the unity and resolve of Silas and the Native Americans, he found himself compelled to act. "Enough of this, McGraw. It's time the town knows who you really are." With the sheriff's intervention, the evidence of McGraw's crimes was brought forth, illuminating the darkness he had perpetuated. The community stood together, a mosaic of strength that had risen from the ashes of division. McGraw's empire of lies began to crumble before their eyes, as the truth became a weapon sharper than any gun. As silence fell over the gathering, Silas turned to Chemo, their eyes reflecting the triumph of justice. "We have faced the storm and emerged stronger. Our stories are now intertwined, woven together by courage and mercy. Chemo smiled, a glimmer of hope illuminating his features. This is just the beginning, Silas. We will rebuild, not just for ourselves, but for all those who have suffered in silence. With a heavy heart, yet a spirit unbroken, Silas looked out across the landscape that had once felt so isolating. In the end, it is not just about defeating the enemy, but about finding a way to stand together in the face of adversity. We are not defined by our past, but by how we choose to walk into the future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the land, Silas understood that justice was not simply a destination, but a journey forged in the fires of truth and the bonds of community. Remember, the true measure of a man lies not in the battles he fights, but in the courage he finds to do what is right. And so in the heart of the American West, where the dust of the past mingled with the promise of tomorrow, Silas and Chemo stood as beacons of hope, reminding all who would listen. True strength lies in unity, and justice, once ignited, can never be extinguished.